We're going to be starting our hearing, and the purpose of this evening's session is to hold a public hearing on the 2016 Draft Comprehensive Plan. If it pleases my colleagues, I'd like to dispense with reading of the public notices. Okay, no objections. I'd like to continue. We're going to hold a public hearing as we always do when it is your turn to speak, and our Madam Clerk will be calling up your name. Would ask you to please come up to the table, state your name and address clearly for our record. We ask that your statements be brief, to the point, and everybody will have 3 minutes per speaker. I'm asking you tonight to please, as you present, to give us your testimony, that you stay on target. We're asking that you not either compliment or criticize any commissioners in particular. We're here tonight to hear what you have to say about issues and concerns. That would help the process immensely. So we would appreciate your cooperation on that. This is tonight a public hearing, and as in any hearing, it means that we're here tonight to take your testimony and to hear from the public. So the commissioners will not be entertaining any questions, nor will we be debating any issues this evening. We have the right to extend the time frame or to continue to the hearing to another date if that's necessary. With that, then, we're going to begin with Mr. Ball, who will give a brief overview of where we are on the comprehensive plan at this point. And then we will go ahead and hear from those that are signed up. And as it is right now, we have, it looks to me like 39, I'm sorry, it didn't go all the way down, 45 folks. Okay. Right, and I was just reminded that we, as you well know, we split the hearing to give more opportunity, more individuals an opportunity to speak. So we're starting at 4. We'll go through, we may take a short break and then come back. But this is one hearing, so you will not be able to testify at 4 o'clock and then at 6 o'clock. You have one opportunity, okay? With that, Mr. Ball, if you would, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, what I'd like to do is review the proposed changes from the Planning Commission's recommended plan that's previously presented to the Board of County Commissioners. This was presented for consideration, and there were several work sessions that the county commissioners held on June 7th, June 14th, as well as today, and made recommended changes to the plan that was presented to the Board of County Commissioners from the Planning Commission. And I'll just highlight those changes. First change is in the introduction of the plan, and includes new language requiring consistency between the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance and requirements for implementation. These are all posted on the board docs and on our charlescountyplan.org website, so you can review them in their entirety. The chapter 3 is the land use chapter, and there were several changes proposed in the chapter of the land use, including Bryan's Road, Marshall Hall and Marbury, Watershed Conservation District, the airport land uses, Indian Head Science and Technology Park, then Development District, boundary, and priority funding areas. The Bryan's Road, Airport, Indian Head Science and Technology are grouped together for clarification. The proposal is to designate Bryan's Road as a mixed-use village, change the land uses for the Maryland Airport, the land around the Maryland Airport, to watershed conservation, and remove associated policies for the airport land use study. Change the Indian Head Science and Tech Park to watershed conservation district. This graphic shows the general area of Bryan's Road, and it's intended to illustrate the vacant property and some of the land uses that were just discussed. The areas in yellow are projects that have some degree of approval, but may also be vacant at this time. The areas in brown are undeveloped, and these areas would be subject to changing the zoning based on the new land uses. This was the land use map that was proposed by the Planning Commission which predominantly kept what was in the plan from the 2006 comprehensive plan. However, there was some changes to increase the watershed conservation district. The county commissioners discussed the plan and changes on June 14th, and this map reflects those changes that I just discussed, removing the land uses around the industrial land uses around the airport and Indian Head Science and Tech Park. However, at that time we noted that the brown area was residential, and there was both vacant and built development in the brown areas, so it was kept as residential. And then for further clarification, we went back and looked at the recommendations, and the proposal was to also remove some of those residential land uses east of Marshall Hall Road and south of 210, and make those watershed conservation, and to have the mixed-use village focus more north of Highway 210. So going back and changing the map for the Bryan's Road area, these areas were also included in watershed conservation, and the area around or adjacent to Indian Head, and then the development district was reduced to reflect those developed areas. Another land use change was the Marshall Hall and Marbury area, changing a Tier 3 designation on the tier map to Tier 4. To also retain the rural conservation land uses for these areas, and to restrict development in Tier 4 areas to only 7 lots or less. This is the area that would be affected by those changes. Marshall Hall Tier 3 outlined in the orange, and the Marbury area also outlined in orange here. Those would now have more of a conservation land use and tier designation. A more recent change proposed is changing part of the land uses in the St. Charles development area from a residential medium density to a lower suburban large lot district of 1 unit per acre. And that's this area in yellow, which is north of La Plato Road and south of Billingsley. The tier maps were adjusted based on that change. This was the existing tier map. If you notice the areas in the northwest part of the county, the Tier 3 areas in orange that I mentioned on here, and the areas around the airport were proposed for sewer, and then the new tier map would remove those and designate them as Tier 4. Watershed Conservation District is a new land use district that was proposed and part of the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission recommended a density of 1 unit per 10 acres. The county commissioners are proposing 1 unit per 20 acres. With the changes that I just previously mentioned to Bryan's Road and some of the other ones, this would be the new boundary for the Watershed Conservation District. The development district would also be changed, making the development district boundary consistent with the priority funding areas. The areas outside of the new boundary would be subject to downzoning and a lower density as part of the comprehensive rezoning for the plan. The area mostly impacted by this is the Bennsville area, south of Highway 210. And again, this map is intended to show the undeveloped lands in brown and approved projects in yellow that may be partially or built and may not. Those would be impacted by this decision. This was the previous boundary. It also included the Bryan's Road area and the industrial lands in the development district, and the new boundary would remove those, reduce the Bryan's Road area, reduce the PFA, the development district in Waldorf. This map and outlined in orange. Also, there was some additional clarification to the Bennsville area, to the development district. In 2006, this area had a residential land use with a base density of 1 unit per acre that allowed bonuses. The proposed amendment initially designated this for suburban large lot, 1 unit per acre. With further clarification, it was designated watershed conservation and will allow the utilization of transferable development rights up to the suburban large lot density of 1 unit per acre. Chapter 4 is water resources. There was language included regarding the impacts on groundwater recharge issues, additional language regarding the banning of fracking drilling methods for natural gas in Charles County. Chapter 5 is natural resources. Changes the density in all the major stream valleys from 1 unit per 3 acres to 1 unit per 10 acres. Includes the Nanjemoy and Mattawam stream valleys as a new rural legacy designated area. This is a map that shows the stream valley boundaries on top of the preservation and resource protection zones. So those would be all the dark green plus the blue areas would be subject to those protection. Chapter 7 is economic development, and this chapter was revised to be consistent with the recently approved 5-year strategic economic development plan. Chapter 10 is community development. There's new requirements for 10 to 15% of new subdivisions of 20 lots or greater to include moderately priced housing. Establishing a new affordable housing board to monitor, implement, and enforce these regulations. And more recently, including new policies and action items to require a housing mix of 80% single family, 15% townhomes, and 5% apartments, and to include enforcement provisions to achieve this in the plan. Chapter 11 is agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. It includes the Nanjemoy area as a new priority preservation area, also the Mattawam and Stream Valley in the PPA. Includes generalized stream valley maps, and more specific analysis would need to be determined the extent of the stream valleys for future development. This was the PPA priority preservation area presented last week, and we went back and also looked at those recommendations again, and it was the intent of this proposal to include the Nanjemoy area that was initially part of the previous merged scenario plan. So we corrected the map to reflect that as proposed by the commissioners. And here's what the new map would look like for the new priority preservation area, Cobb Neck, Nanjemoy, and Mattawam and Stream Valley area. Chapter 12 is a new request for an implementation schedule. This was developed and drafted, posted online, and will be included in the plan with short, medium, and long-term work items linked to policies and action items. Also, there was discussion on the rate of growth and the clarification of the amendment, and staff previously noted that the amendments would not necessarily affect the rate of growth. But looking at this again, the amendments do reduce the development districts, both the development district and the previously deferred development district, by 28,840 acres. Approximately half of that is vacant, so I think it can be safely said that it would reduce the supply and the potential overall rate of growth in the areas that would be downzoned and affected by those changes. This was the previous land use map presented on 6/14, and with some of those adjustments and clarifications, here's the final land use map as proposed for the public hearing consideration this evening. With that, I'll close and open it up to public comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ball, excuse me, and your staff for working diligently on this and under some time constraints. So we appreciate the work that you put into it. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the first.
Okay.